everybody. This is Sakutian. I hope y'all are having a good day. Give me just a sec. I am taking a look here. We're going to make sure everything's working before we get rolling. Haha, it is working. Okay. Hi, everybody. I meant to stream earlier today, but it has been a busy day. But I have promised you all that we are going to keep to our at least 2 streams a week thing. And I'm gonna try to do that as much as I can. I want to be here to create content for y'all and to make fun stuff. I do also want to show off some things. We have some new stuff, which I'm very, very excited about. So I'm going to go through some announcements, and then we'll do some other stuff, and then I will jump into our event for the evening. I was only going to carry this on through March because March is Brain Injury Awareness Month, but I decided to just keep it going for as long as possible. We are doing a charity event for the Brain Injury Association. Hi, Ranma. We are doing a charity drive for the Brain Injury Association of America. The BIAA raises money for people who have suffered brain injuries. They help with research, they help with treatment, and they help with recovery. So they help people to understand what's happened, recover, and to get back to their lives. I learned about it from my friend Prism Splay, who is a very talented streamer. She did a charity drive for them last year, and she raised over $5,000 for charity. So if you want to go follow Prism, she's great. If you are able and in a good place and you want to donate to the Brain Injury Association of America, we've raised $60. I'm really, really proud of y'all. Pebbles, you're doing a great job. I also want to show off some of our new stuff. So I have some new sound alerts, speaking of Prism. We've got some new ones. So there's that one, and let me see here. So a lot of these are tied to events. So like we have a new raid alert that'll go off when we get raided. Naughty Pebble. Let me see here. All right. That one is another one that I just think is really fun. There are actually, you know what? Here, let me do this. Let me do this. I'll just do that, and I'll make sure this works. Let's go in here. You didn't hear the redeem go off? Okay, I did not hear it go off, so I will have to look at that later. Did you hear the first two go off, Ranma? I know you didn't hear the last one. Okay. Wow. Did you hear the Naughty Pebble and the Prism Loves the Precious Pebbles? I will figure out why the other one didn't go off. That'll be my fun activity for later to play with. Anyway, Prism's Play did those. She is the voice of Tower. And I've been really, really fortunate. I had a team in mind for who I wanted when I started doing stuff. Oh, that's the other thing. If you look, you could just barely hear the Baldur's Gate. Run, is your volume down? Because it's like really loud for me. I'll turn them up, but like it's like really, really loud for me. I'll turn them up a little bit. Give me just a sec. Let me play with this. This is why I... Alright, Yeah, I have it like turned. Oh wait, I bet I know what it is. I bet I know what it is. One sec. One sec. Let's try something. Let's try something here. It's very low. Okay, let me try something, Rama. Let me try something.
Secret tunnel, secret tunnel, through the mountains, secret, 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 secret tunnel, yeah!
Yeah. Okay, Ranma, could you hear that? Okay. That you heard clearly. Okay. We're gonna try that. We're gonna try one more thing. I think I know what the problem is for at least one thing. Here you go. I'll give you this one for free.
Making pancakes, making bacon pancakes. Take some bacon and I'll put it in a pancake. Bacon pancakes, that's what it's gonna make. Bacon pancakes. Making pancakes, making bacon pancakes. Take some bacon and I'll put it in a pancake. Bacon pancakes, that's what it's gonna make. Bacon pancakes.
Okay, let me try one other thing here. So, since this started with Baldur's Gate, y'all are getting free sound alerts. I don't care. Because I like them. I think they're fun. And I spent a lot of time actually getting them to work, so... let's see. Let's see. There it is, Baldur's Gate. Pro streamer.
Baldur's Gate After Dark. It's a little bit sexy, but you are going to be covered in blood at the end. Wow. That went to a place.
All right, Ranma, could you hear that okay? You're my sound tester for the evening, Ranma. Welcome in. Thanks for coming to my stream. You get to be my audio check. All right. Ranma probably wisely evacuated because who's sticking around for this business? What I was gonna say, actually, you know what? I'll show y'all. I'll just show you because it's easier to do that than to do the other stuff. You didn't hear it? Why is that? Okay, why are you not hearing that? Because, again, it's deafeningly loud to me.
Baldur's Gate After Dark. It's a little bit sexy, but you are going to be covered in blood at the end. Wow. That went to a place.
Fear not, citizens! Hope has arrived! Because I am here!
Okay, I figured out what the problem with at least one thing was. I am really bad at setting up these scenes for... What the heck was I doing? I didn't set up the scene correctly, because I didn't use this for a very long time. I am looking for something on my computer. Here. No. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. No. Ah, here it is. Okay, check this out. Oh my god, that's so small. No. Do you think it might be I don't think it's a delay, Ranma. That's a good idea. But I think what it is I have the sound levels set differently for different scenes. I spend most of my time in the other scene that I have, and because of that, I don't think that I ever really played with it. This, I'll just show you all the one for right now. This is one of our new our new sub badges. This was done by Faded Liara. It's a bonnet. These are topiaries. There are different topiaries for everybody. I've got one for, I think it's 1 month bonnet. Bune. But yeah, there's like for the first year, every couple months there's a different one. Faded Liar is a very, very talented artist. She's done a couple things for the stream. She did our emote for Trevor. So if you like the Trevor emote, Liara did that too. Liara's amazing, super sweet person. So yes, if you're a sub, if you are one of the precious pebbles, you will get a sub badge, and they change every couple months. The bunny is not the first one. That's all I'll tell you. Bye, bunny. Boop. Bye, bye, bunny. Okay. So for the record, we are not in my usual area. Don't hug Trevor. This is Tower's library. Ooh, and I moved the whole library. This is Tower's library. This is basically where I come for more quiet streams, to do like some just chatting or some reading. I promised y'all I would do more reading stuff, and I probably should actually announce in my... I am so bad at all of this. Let's just do... We'll do a little thing here. Reading Winnie the Pooh on Twitch now. There we go. Great. You want to stretch? Okay. I'll give you a stretch. Okay. There's your stretch. So these streams are a little bit different from my usual thing. Most of what I do is like play video games and hang out with y'all. I'm trying to do different kinds of content because I want to do different things. I want to bring people different content that they like. I've only done one of these reading streams so far. I was really nervous about it, and I want to keep doing them. So we are going to keep doing them. It was a good stretch. Thank you for the stretch, Rama. I am reading y'all Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. This copy I bought at my local library. It was very badly damaged and was being retired from the library, so I picked it up. It's got little cool pictures. This is the public domain book, so it's okay to read, y'all, and come to the library to do that. So I am going to be on screen with y'all. These streams are a little... I'm not trying to be ASMR. I'm not set up for ASMR. I just am a little less high energy when I do these, because the hope is that y'all can listen to this and maybe you just want something to listen to, or if you're trying to go to sleep, you can come and relax to that. But yeah. So last time, let me see here. Last time we ended on where Eeyore had lost his tail. How am I enjoying the new Discord updates? I'm not sure which updates you're referring to, Ranma. My day's been good, thank you. Okay, so this is chapter 5, in which Piglet meets a heffalump. One day, when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was eating and said carelessly, "I saw a heffalump today, Piglet." "What was it doing?" asked Piglet. "Just lumping along," said Christopher Robin. "I don't think it saw me." "I saw one once," said Piglet. "At least, I think I did," he said, "only perhaps it wasn't." "So did I," said Pooh, wondering what a heffalump was like. "You don't often see them," said Christopher Robin carelessly. "Not now," said Piglet. "Not at this time of year," said Pooh. Then they all talked about something else, until it was time for Pooh and Piglet to go home together. At first they stumped along the path which edged the 100-acre wood. They didn't say much to each other, but when they came to the stream and had helped each other across the stepping stones and were able to walk side by side again over the heather, they began to talk in a friendly way about this and that, and Piglet said, "If I see what you mean, Pooh," and Pooh said, "It's just what I think myself, Piglet," and Piglet said, "But on the other hand, Pooh, we must remember," and Pooh said, "Quite true, Piglet, although I have forgotten it for the moment." And then, just as they came to the 6 pine trees, Pooh looked round to see nobody else was listening, and said in a very solemn voice, "Piglet, I have decided something." "What have you decided, Pooh?" "I have decided to catch a heffalump." Pooh nodded his head several times as he said this. and waited for Piglet to say how, or Pooh, you couldn't, or something helpful of that sort. But Piglet said nothing. The fact was that Piglet was wishing that he had thought about it first. I shall do it, said Pooh, after waiting a little longer, by means of a trap, and it must be a cunning trap, so you will have to help me, Piglet. Pooh, said Piglet, feeling quite happy again. I will. And then he said, How shall we do it, said Pooh. No, wait, I lost my place, sorry about that. How shall we do it? And Pooh said, That's just it, how? And then they sat down together to think it out. Pooh's first idea was that they should dig a very, very deep pit, and then the heffalump would come along and fall into the pit, and... Why, said Piglet. Why what? Said Pooh. Why would he fall in? Pooh rubbed his nose with his front paw and said that the heffalump might be walking along, humming a little song, and looking up at the sky, wondering if it would rain, and so he wouldn't see the very deep pit until he was halfway down, and by then it would be too late. Piglet said that that was a very good trap, but supposing it was raining already, Pooh rubbed his nose again and said that he hadn't thought of that, and then he brightened up and said that if it were raining, the heffalump would be looking at the sky, wondering if it would clear up, and he wouldn't see the very deep pit until he was halfway down, when it would be too late. Piglet said that now that this point had been explained, he thought it was a cunning trap. Pooh was very proud when he heard this, and he felt that the heffalump was as good as caught already. But there was just one other thing which had to be thought about, and that was this. Where should they dig the very deep pit? Piglet said the best place would be somewhere where the heffalump was, just before he fell into it, only about a foot farther on. But then he would see us digging it, said Pooh. Not if he was looking at the sky. But he would suspect, said Pooh, if he happened to look down. He thought for a very long time, and then added sadly, It isn't as easy as I thought. I suppose that's why heffalumps hardly ever get caught. That must be it, said Piglet. They sighed and got up, and when they had taken a few gorse prickles out of themselves, they sat down again, and all the time Pooh was saying to himself, if only I could think of something, for he felt very sure that a very clever brain would catch a heffalump, if only he knew the right way to go about it. Suppose, he said to Piglet, that you wanted to catch me. How would you do it? Well, said Piglet, I should do it like this. I should make a trap, and I should put a jar of honey in the trap, and you would smell it, and you would go in after it, and I would go in after it, said Pooh excitedly, only very carefully so as not to hurt myself. And I would get the jar of honey, and I would lick around the edges first of all, pretending that there wasn't any more, you know, and then I should walk away and think about it a little, and then I should come back and start licking in the middle of the jar, and then, yes, well, never mind about that. There you would be, and there I should catch you. Now the first thing to think of is, what do heffalumps like? I should think acorns, shouldn't you? We'll get a lot of... I say, wake up, Pooh. Pooh, who had gone into a happy dream, woke up with a start and said that honey was a much more trapping thing than acorns. Piglet didn't think so, and they were going to argue about it. But then Piglet remembered that if they put acorns in the trap, he would have to find the acorns. But if they put honey, Pooh would have to give up some of his own honey. So he said, all right, honey then. Just as Pooh remembered it too, and was going to say, all right, acorns. Honey, said Piglet to himself in a thoughtful way, as if it were now settled, I'll dig the pit, while you go and get the honey. Very well, said Pooh, and he stumped off. As soon as he got back home, he went to the larder, and he stood on a chair, and he took down a very large jar of honey from the top shelf. It had honey written on it, but just to make sure, he took the paper cover off, and he looked at it, and it looked just like honey. But you never can tell, said Pooh. I remember my uncle saying once that he had seen cheese just this color. So he put his tongue in, and he took a large lick. Yes, he said, it is, no doubt about that. And honey, I should say, right down to the bottom of the jar. Unless, of course, he said, somebody put cheese in at the bottom just for a joke. Perhaps I should go a bit further. Just in case a heffalump doesn't like cheese, the same as me. Ah, he gave a deep sigh, I was right. It is honey, right the way down. Having made certain of this, he took the jar back to Piglet, and Piglet looked up from the bottom of his very deep pit and said, got it. And Pooh said, "Yes, but it isn't quite a full jar." And he threw it down to Piglet, and Piglet said, "No, it isn't. Is this all you've got left?" And Pooh said yes, because it was. So Piglet put the jar at the bottom of the pit and climbed out, and they went off home together. "Well, good night, Pooh." And Piglet said, when they had gotten to Pooh's house, "And when we meet at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning by the pine trees, and see how many heffalumps we've got in our trap." 6 o'clock, Piglet. "And have you got any string?" "No." "Why do you want string?" "To lead them home with." "Oh, I think a heffalump comes if you whistle." "Some do and some don't. You never can tell with heffalumps." "Well, good night." "Good night." And off Piglet trotted to his house, Trespassers W, while Pooh made his preparations for bed. Some hours later, just as the night was beginning to steal away, Pooh woke up suddenly with a sinking feeling. He had had that sinking feeling before, and he knew what it meant. He was hungry. So he went to the larder, and he stood on a chair, and he reached up to the top shelf and found nothing. "That's funny," he thought. "I know I had a jar of honey there, a full jar of honey right up to the top, and it had honey written on it. Oop, my page is not turning. Just a moment. So that I should know it was honey. That's very funny." And then he began to wander up and down, wondering where it was, and murmuring to himself like this: "It's very, very funny, 'cause I know I had some honey, 'cause it had a label on saying honey. A galuptious full of pot too. I don't know where it's got to. No, I don't know where it's gone. Well, it's funny." He had murmured this to himself 3 times in a singing sort of way, when he suddenly remembered he had put it into the cunning trap of the heffalump. "Bother," said Pooh. "It all comes of trying to be a kind of heffalumps." He got back into bed, but he couldn't sleep. The more he tried to sleep, the more he couldn't. He tried counting sheep, which is sometimes a good way of getting to sleep, but as that was no good, he tried counting heffalumps, and that was worse, because every heffalump that he counted was making straight for his pot of honey, and eating all of it. For some minutes, he lay there miserably. But when the 587th heffalump was licking its jaws and saying to itself, "Very good honey this. I don't know where I've tasted better," Pooh could bear it no longer. He jumped out of bed, and he ran out of the house, and he ran straight to the 6 pine trees. The sun was still in bed, but there was a lightness in the sky over the 100-acre wood, which seemed to show that it was waking up and would very soon be kicking off the clothes. In the half-light, the pine trees looked very cold and lonely. And the very deep pit seemed deeper than it was, and Pooh's jar of honey at the bottom was something mysterious. A shape and no more, but as he got nearer to the house, his nose told him that it was indeed honey, and his tongue came out and began to polish up his mouth, ready for it. "Bother," said Pooh as he got his nose inside the jar. "A heffalump has been eating it." And then he thought a little and said, "Oh no, I did. I'd forgotten." Indeed, he had eaten most of it, but there was a little left at the very bottom of the jar. He pushed his head right in and began to lick. By and by, Piglet woke up, and as soon as he woke, he said to himself, "Oh." Then he said bravely, "Yes," and then still more bravely, "Quite so." But he didn't feel very brave, for the world which was really jiggering about in his brain was heffalumps. What was a heffalump like? Was it fierce? Did it come when he whistled? And how did it come? Was it fond of pigs at all? If it was fond of pigs, did it make a difference what sort of pig? Supposing it was fierce with pigs, would it make any difference if the pig had a grandfather called Trespassers William? He didn't know the answer to any of these questions, and he was going to see his first heffalump in about an hour. Of course, Pooh would be with him, and it was much more friendly with 2, but suppose heffalumps were very fierce with pigs and bears. Wouldn't it be better to pretend that he had a headache and he couldn't go up to the 6 pine trees this morning? But then suppose that it was a very fine day and there was no heffalump in the trap. Here he would be in bed all morning, simply wasting his time for nothing. What should he do? And then he had a clever idea. He would go up very quietly to the 6 pine trees, peep very cautiously into the trap, and see if there was a heffalump in there. And if there was, he would go back to bed, and if there wasn't, he wouldn't. So off he went. At first he thought that there wouldn't be a heffalump in the trap, and then he thought that there would be. And as he got nearer, he was sure that there would be because he could hear heffalumping about, and he could hear it heffalumping about like anything. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, said Piglet to himself, and he wanted to run away. But somehow, having got so near, he felt that he must see what a heffalump was like. So he crept to the side and he looked down into the trap. And all the time, Winnie the Pooh had been trying to get the honey jar off of his head. The more he shook it, the more lightly it struck. Bother, he said from inside the jar. And oh, help, and mostly ow. And he tried bumping it against things. Hello, Jezza. I'm reading Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Welcome in. Pooh and Piglet are trying to trap a heffalump, and Pooh has his head stuck in a honey jar. And Piglet is trying to be brave. Actually, here you go. Jezza, give me just a sec. I'm going to do something for you here. There you go. We'll test something real quick. Let's test this. Hi, Eldraine. Welcome in. Okay, so that still didn't work. Alright, I will have to figure out why our new sound alert isn't working. Welcome to my scuff stream, everybody. Back to Winnie the Pooh. He tried. The more he shook it, the more tightly it stuck. Bother, he said inside the jar, and oh help, and mostly ow. And he tried bumping it against things, but as he couldn't see what he was bumping it against, it didn't help him. And he tried to climb out of the trap, but as he could see nothing but the jar, and not much of that, he couldn't find his way. So at last he lifted up his head, jar and all, and made a loud roaring noise of sadness and despair. And it was at that moment that Piglet looked down. Help, help, cried Piglet. A heffalump, a horrible heffalump. And he scampered off as hard as he could, still crying out, help, help, a horrible heffalump. Hoff, hoff, a hellible horrolump. Haul, haul, a hoffle hellerump. And he didn't stop crying and scampering until he got to Christopher Robin's house. Whatever's the matter, Piglet, said Christopher Robin, who was just getting up. Heff, said Piglet, breathing so hard that he could hardly speak. A heffalump. Where? Up there, said Piglet, waving his paw. What did it look like? Like, it had the biggest head you ever saw, Christopher Robin. A giant, enormous thing, like nothing. A huge, big, well, like, I don't know. Like an enormous big nothing, like a jar. Well, said Christopher Robin, putting on his shoes, I shall go and look at it. Come on. Piglet wasn't afraid if he had Christopher Robin with him, so they went off together. I can hear it, can't you? Said Piglet anxiously as they got near. I can hear something, said Christopher Robin. It was Pooh bumping his head against a tree root he had found. There, said Piglet, isn't it awful? And he held on tight to Christopher Robin's hand. Suddenly, Christopher Robin began to laugh. And he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed. And while he was still laughing, crash went the heffalump's head against a tree root. Smash went the jar, and out came Winnie the Pooh's head again. Then Piglet saw what a foolish piglet he had been, and he was so ashamed of himself that he ran straight off home and went to bed with a headache. For Christopher Robin and Pooh went home to breakfast together. Oh, bears, said Christopher Robin, how I do love you. So do I, said Pooh. Chapter 6, in which Eeyore has a birthday and gets 2 presents. Hello, Lade. I'm Winnie the Pooh. Welcome in. Eeyore, the old gray donkey, stood by the side of the stream and looked at himself in the water. Pathetic, he said. That's what it is. Pathetic. He turned and walked slowly down the stream for 20 yards, splashed across it, and walked slowly back on the other side. Then he looked at himself in the water again, as he thought, he said. No better from this side, but nobody minds, nobody cares. Pathetic, that's what it is. There was a crackling noise in the bracken behind him, and out came Pooh. Good morning, Eeyore, said Pooh. Good morning, Pooh Bear, said Eeyore gloomily. If it is a good morning, he said. Which I doubt, he said. Why, what's the matter? Nothing, Pooh Bear, nothing. We can't all, and some of us don't. That's all there is to it. Can't all what? Said Pooh, rubbing his nose. Gaiety, song and dance. Here we go round the mulberry bush. Oh, said Pooh. He thought for a very long time, and then he asked, What mulberry bush is that? Bon homie, went Eeyore gloomily. French, meaning bon homie, he explained. I'm not complaining, but there it is. Pooh sat down on a large stone and tried to think this out very carefully. It sounded to him like a riddle, and he was never very much good at riddles, being a bear of very little brain. So he sang Coddleston Pie instead. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. A fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. This was the first verse. When he had finished it, Eeyore didn't actually say he didn't like it, so Pooh very kindly sang the second verse. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. A fish can't whistle, and neither can I. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. Eeyore still said nothing to it at all, so Pooh hummed the third verse quietly to himself. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. Why does a chicken, I don't know why, ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. That's right, said Eeyore. Sing, tiddly, tiddy-too. Here we go gathering nuts in May. Enjoy yourself. I am, said Pooh. Some can, said Eeyore. Why, what's the matter? Is anything the matter? You seem so sad, Eeyore. Sad? Why should I be sad? It's my birthday, the happiest day of the year. Your birthday? Said Pooh in great surprise. Of course it is, can't you see? Look at all the presents I've had. He waved a foot from side to side. Look at the birthday cake. Candles and pink sugar. Pooh looked first to the right and then to the left. Presents? Said Pooh. Birthday cake? Said Pooh. Where? Can't you see them? No, said Pooh. Neither can I, said Eeyore. Joke, he explained. Ha ha. Pooh scratched his head, being a little puzzled by all this. But is it really your birthday? He asked. It is. Oh, well, many happy returns of the day, Eeyore. And many happy returns to you, Pooh Bear. But it isn't my birthday. No, it's mine. But you said many happy returns. Well, why not? You don't always want to have to be miserable on your birthday, do you? Oh, I see, said Pooh. It's bad enough, said Eeyore, almost breaking down. Being miserable myself, what with no presents and no cake and no candles and no proper notice taken of me at all. But if everybody else is going to be miserable too... This was too much for Pooh. Stay there, he called to Eeyore as he turned and hurried back home as quick as he could, for he felt that he must get poor Eeyore a present of some sort at once, and he could always think of a proper one afterwards. Outside of his house he found Piglet jumping up and down, trying to reach the knocker. Hello, Piglet, he said. Hello, Pooh, said Piglet. What are you trying to do? I am trying to reach the knocker, said Piglet. I came around to... Let me do it for you, said Pooh kindly. So he reached up and knocked at the door. I have just seen Eeyore, he began, and poor Eeyore is in a very sad condition, because it's his birthday and nobody has taken any notice of it. And he's very gloomy, you know what Eeyore is, and there he was, and what a long time whoever lives here is taking to answer this door. And he knocked again. But Pooh, said Piglet, it's your own house. Oh, said Pooh, so it is, he said. Well, let's go in. So in they went. The first thing Pooh did was to go to the cupboard and to see if he had quite a small jar of honey left. And he had, so he took that down. I'm giving this to Eeyore, he explained, as a present. What are you going to give him? Couldn't I give it too, said Piglet, from both of us? No, said Pooh, that would not be a good plan. All right then, I'll give him a balloon. I've got one left from my party. I'll go and get it now, shall I? That, Piglet, is a very good idea. That Piglet is a very good idea. Yes, indeed. There we go. Nobody can be uncheered with a balloon. So off Piglet trotted, and in the other direction went Pooh with his jar of honey. It was a very warm day, and he had a long way to go. He hadn't gone more than half a way when a sort of funny feeling began to creep all over him. It began with the tip of his nose and trickled all through him and out the soles of his feet. It was just as if somebody inside of him was saying, "Now then, Pooh, time for a little something." "Dear, dear," said Pooh. "I didn't know it was as late as that." So he sat down and took the top off the jar of honey. "Lucky I brought this with me," he thought. Many a bear going out on a warm day like this would never have thought of bringing a little something with him. And he began to eat. "Now let me see," he thought as he took his last lick of honey from inside the jar. "Where was I going? Ah, yes, Eeyore." He got up slowly, and then he suddenly remembered he had eaten Eeyore's birthday present. "Bother," said Pooh. "What shall I do? I must give him something." For a little while he couldn't think of anything, and then he thought, well, it's a very nice pot, even if there's no honey in it, and if I washed it clean and got somebody to write happy birthday on it, Eeyore could keep things in it, which might be useful. So as he was just passing the 100-acre wood, he went inside to call on Owl, who lived there. "Good morning, Owl," he said. "Good morning, Pooh," said Owl. "Many happy returns of Eeyore's birthday," said Pooh. "Oh, is that what it is?" "What are you giving him, Owl?" "What are you giving him, Pooh?" "I'm giving him a useful pot to keep things in, and I wanted to ask you." "Is this it?" said Owl, taking it out of Pooh's paw. "Yes, I wanted to ask you." "Somebody has been keeping honey in it," said Owl. "You can keep anything in it," said Pooh earnestly. "It's very useful like that. And I wanted to ask you, you want to write a happy birthday on it." "That's what I wanted to ask you," said Pooh, "because my spelling is wobbly. It's good spelling, but it wobbles, and the letters get in the wrong places. Would you write a happy birthday on it for me?" "It's a nice pot," said Owl, looking at it all around. "Couldn't I give it too, from both of us?" "No," said Pooh, "that would not be a good plan. Now I'll just wash it first, and then you can write on it." Well, he washed the pot out and he dried it, while Owl licked at the end of his pencil and wondered how to spell birthday. "Can you read, Pooh?" he asked a little anxiously. "There's a notice about knocking and ringing outside my door, which Christopher Robin wrote. Could you read it?" "Christopher Robin told me what it said, and then I could." "Well, I'll tell you what this says, and then you'll be able to." So Owl wrote, and this is what he wrote. So what's written here is essentially gibberish. He wrote, "Hippy pappy blah 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 blah." It's just a lot of T's and H's and Y's. Pooh looked on admiringly. "I'm just saying a happy birthday," said Owl carelessly. "It's a nice long one," said Pooh, very much impressed by it. "Well, actually, of course I'm saying a very happy birthday with love from Pooh. Naturally, it takes a good deal of pencil to say a long thing like that." He wrote it in Prismese. He did write it in Prismese. He wrote it in the lesser Prismese. And again, if you don't know who Prism's Play is, she is a very talented, amazing unicorn. You should go follow her. She is Prism's Play on pretty much every platform. And speaking of Prism, let me give you all a little treat because it makes me happy every time I hear it.
Prism loves all the precious pebbles.
There you go. Prism did all of my new custom sound alerts. Alright, back to the story. Here we go. "Oh, I see," said Pooh. We've got another one. I'll give you all the two non-event ones for free.
Ooh, someone's been a naughty, naughty pebble.
So back to the story. Here we go. While all of this was happening, Piglet had gone back to his own house to get Eeyore's balloon. He held it very tightly against himself so that it wouldn't blow away, and he ran as fast as he could so as to get to the Eeyore before Pooh did, for he thought that he would like to be the first one to give a present. Just as if he had the thought of it without being told by anybody. And running along, and thinking how pleased Eeyore would be, he didn't look where he was going, and suddenly he put his foot in a rabbit hole and fell down flat on his face. Bang! Piglet lay there wondering what had happened. At first he thought that the whole world had blown up, and then he thought that perhaps only the forest part of it had, and then he thought perhaps only he had, and he was now alone on the moon or somewhere, and he would never see Christopher Robin or Pooh or Eeyore again. And then he thought, well, even if I'm on the moon, I needn't be face down all the time. So he got up cautiously and he looked around. He was still in the forest. Well, that's funny, he thought. I wonder what that bang was. I couldn't have made such a noise just falling down. And where's my balloon? And what's that small piece of damp rag doing? It was the balloon. Oh dear, said Piglet. Oh dearie, dear, dear. Well, it's too late now. I can't go back, and I haven't another balloon. And perhaps Eeyore doesn't like balloons very much. So he trotted on rather sadly now. Down he came to the other side of the stream where Eeyore was, and he called out to him. Good morning, Eeyore, shouted Piglet. Good morning, little Piglet, said Eeyore. If it is a good morning, he said, which I doubt, said he. Not that it matters, he said. Many happy returns of the day, said Piglet, having now gotten closer. Eeyore stopped looking at himself in the stream and turned to stare at Piglet. Just say that again, he said. Many happy... Wait a moment. Balancing on 3 legs, he began to bring his 4th leg very cautiously up to his ear. I did this yesterday, he explained as he fell down on the 3rd time. It's quite easy. It's so as I can hear better. There, that's done it. Now, what were you saying? And he pushed his ear forward with his hoof. Many happy returns of the day, said Piglet again. Meaning me? Of course, Eeyore. My birthday, yes. Me having a real birthday. Yes, Eeyore, and I brought you a present. Eeyore took down his right hoof from his right ear, turned around, and with great difficulty put up his left hoof. I must have that in the other ear. Now then. A present, said Piglet very loudly, meaning me again. Yes, my birthday still, of course, Eeyore. Me going on and having a real birthday. Yes, Eeyore, and I brought you a balloon. Balloon, said Eeyore. You did say balloon, one of those big colored things you blow up? Gaiety, song and dance, and here we are, and there we are? Yes, but I'm afraid I'm very sorry, Eeyore, but when I was running along to bring it to you, I fell down. Dear, dear, how unlucky. You ran too fast, I expect. You didn't hurt yourself, little Piglet. No, but Oh, Eeyore, I burst the balloon. There was a very long silence. My balloon? Said Eeyore, at last. Piglet nodded. My birthday balloon? Yes, Eeyore, said Piglet, sniffling a little. Here it is, with many happy returns of the day. And he gave Eeyore the small piece of damp rag. Is this it? Said Eeyore, a little surprised. Piglet nodded. My present? Piglet nodded again. The balloon? Yes. Thank you, Piglet, said Eeyore. You don't mind my asking, he went on, but what color was this balloon when it was a balloon? Red. I just wondered. Red, he murmured to himself. My favorite color. How big was it? About as big as me. I just wondered. About as big as Piglet, he said to himself sadly. My favorite size as well. Oh well. Piglet felt very miserable and didn't know what to say. He was just opening his mouth to begin something and then deciding it wasn't any good saying that, when he heard a shout from the other side of the river, and there was Pooh. Many happy returns of the day, called out Pooh, forgetting what he had said it already. Thank you, Pooh. I'm having them, said Eeyore gloomily. I've brought you a little present, said Pooh excitedly. I've had it, said Eeyore. Pooh had now splashed across the stream to Eeyore, and Piglet was sitting a little ways off, his head in his paws, snuffling to himself. It's a very useful pot, said Pooh. Here it is, and it's got a very happy birthday with love from Pooh written on it. That's what all the writing is, and it's for putting things in. Here. When Eeyore saw the pot, he became quite excited. Why, he said, I believe my balloon will go just into that pot. Oh no, Eeyore, said Pooh. Balloons are much too big to go into pots. What you do with a balloon is you hold on to the balloon. Not mine, said Eeyore proudly. Look, Piglet. And as Piglet looked sorrowfully around, Eeyore picked the balloon up with his teeth and placed it carefully in the pot. Picked it out and put it on the ground, and then picked it up again and put it carefully back. So it does, said Pooh. It goes in. So it does, said Piglet, and it comes out. Doesn't it, said Eeyore. It goes in and out like anything. I'm very glad, said Pooh happily, that I thought of giving you a useful pot to put things in, I mean. I'm very glad, said Piglet happily, that I thought of giving you something to put in a useful pot. But Eeyore wasn't listening. He was taking the balloon out and putting it back again, as happy as could be. And I didn't give him anything, asked Christopher Robin sadly. Of course you did, I said. You gave him, don't you remember, I gave him a box of paint to paint things with. That was it. Why didn't I give it to him in the morning? You were so busy getting his party ready for him. He had a cake with icing on the top, 3 candles, and his name in pink sugar, and... Yes, I remember, said Christopher Robin. Right. This is Chapter 7. Kanga and Baby Roo come to the forest, and Piglet has a bath. Nobody seemed to know where they came from, but they were in the forest, Kanga and Baby Roo. When Pooh had asked Christopher Robin how did they come here, Christopher Robin said, in the usual way, if you know what I mean, Pooh. And Pooh, who didn't, said, oh. And then he nodded his head twice and said, in the usual way, ah. Then he went up to call to his friend Piglet to see what he thought about it. And at Piglet's house he found Rabbit. So they all talked about it together. What I don't like about it is this, said Rabbit. Here we are, you, Pooh, and you, Piglet, and me, and suddenly, and Eeyore, said Pooh, and Eeyore, and then suddenly, and Owl, said Pooh, and Owl, and then all of a sudden, oh, and Eeyore, said Pooh, I was forgetting him. Here we are, said Rabbit, very slowly and carefully, all of us, and then suddenly we wake up one morning, and what do we find? We find a strange animal among us, an animal of whom we have never seen or heard before, an animal who carries her family around in her pocket. I suppose I carried my family with me in my pocket. How many pockets should I want? 16, said Piglet. 17, isn't it, said Rabbit. And one more for a handkerchief, that's 18. 18 pockets in one suit. I haven't the time. There was a long, thoughtful silence. And then Pooh, who'd been frowning very hard for some minutes, said, I make it 15. What, said Rabbit? 15. 15 what? Your family. What about them? Pooh rubbed his nose and said that he thought Rabbit had been talking about his family. Did I? Said Rabbit carelessly. Yes, you said... Never mind, Pooh, said Piglet impatiently. The question is, what are we going to do about Kanga? Oh, I see. The best way, said Rabbit, would be this. The best way would be to steal Baby Roo and hide him, and then when Kanga says, where's Baby Roo, we say, aha. Aha, said Pooh, practicing. Aha, aha. Of course, he went on. And we could say, aha, even if we hadn't stolen Baby Roo. Pooh, said Rabbit kindly, you haven't any brain. I know, said Pooh humbly. We say aha so that Kanga will know that we know where Baby Roo is. Aha means we'll tell you where Baby Roo is if you promise to go away from the forest and never come back. Now don't talk while I think. Pooh went into the corner and tried saying aha in a sort of voice. Sometimes it seemed to him that it did mean what Rabbit said, and sometimes it seemed to him that it didn't. I suppose it's just practice, he thought, and I wonder if Kanga will have to practice too, so she understands it. There's just one thing, said Piglet, fidgeting a bit. I was talking to Christopher Robin, and he said that Kanga was generally regarded as one of the fiercer animals. I'm not frightened of fierce animals, in the ordinary way, but as we all know, that if one of the fiercer animals is deprived of its young, it becomes as fierce as 2 of the fiercer animals, in which case aha is perhaps a foolish thing to say. Piglet, said Rabbit, taking out a pencil and licking the end of it, You haven't any pluck. It is hard to be brave, said Piglet, sniffing slightly, when you are a very small animal. Rabbit, who had begun to write very busily, looked up and said, It is because you are a very small animal that you will be useful in the adventure before us. Piglet was so excited at the idea of being useful that it forgot to be frightened any more, and when Rabbit went on to say that the Kangas were only fierce during the winter months, being the other times of the affectionate disposition, he could hardly sit still. He was so eager to begin being useful at once. What about me? Said Pooh sadly. I suppose I won't be useful? Never mind, Pooh, said Piglet comfortingly. Another time, perhaps. Without Pooh, said Rabbit solemnly as he sharpened his pencil, the adventure would be impossible. Oh, said Piglet, and he tried not to look disappointed. But Pooh... Now you listen, all of you, said Rabbit when he had finished writing, and Pooh and Piglet sat listening very eagerly with their mouths open. This is what Rabbit read out. Plan to capture Baby Roo. General remarks. Kanga runs faster than any of us, even me. More general remarks. Kanga never takes her eyes off Baby Roo, except when he's safely buttoned up in her pocket. 3. Therefore, if we are to capture Baby Roo, we must have a long start because Kanga runs faster than any of us, even me. C1. A thought. If Roo had jumped out of Kanga's pocket and Piglet jumped in, Kanga wouldn't know the difference because Piglet is a very small animal, like Roo. But Kanga would have to be looking the other way first so as not to see Piglet jumping in. C2. Another thought, but if Pooh was talking to her very excitedly, she might look the other way for a moment, and then I could run away with Roo, quickly, and Kanga wouldn't discover the difference until afterwards. Well, Rabbit read it out proudly, and for a little while, after he had read, nobody said anything, and then Piglet, who had been opening and shutting his mouth without making any noise, managed to say, And afterwards? How do you mean? What happens when Kanga does discover the difference? Then we all say, Aha. All 3 of us? Yes. Oh. Why, what's the trouble, Piglet? Nothing, as long as we're all 3 saying it. As long as the 3 of us say it together. And I don't mind, he said. But I shouldn't care to say aha by myself. I wouldn't sound nearly so well. By the way, he said, you're quite sure about what you said about the winter months? Yes, they're only fierce in the winter months. Oh, yes, that's all right. Well, Pooh, you see, what do you think, Pooh? No, said Pooh Bear. Not yet, he said. What do I do? Well, you just have to talk very hard to Kanga, so she doesn't notice anything. Oh, what about? Anything you like. You mean like telling her a deep bit of poetry or something? That's it, said Rabbit. Splendid. Now, come along. So they all went out to look for Kanga. Kanga and Roo were spending a quiet afternoon in the sandy part of the forest. Baby Roo was practicing very small jumps in the sand and falling down mouse holes and climbing out of them. And Kanga was fidgeting and saying, Just one more jump, dear, and then we must go home. And at that moment, who should come stumping up the hill but Pooh? Good afternoon, Kanga. Good afternoon, Pooh. Look at me jumping, squeaked Roo, and he fell into another mouse hole. Hello, Roo, my little fellow. Well, we were just going home, said Kanga. Good afternoon, Rabbit. Good afternoon, Piglet. Rabbit and Piglet, who had now come up from the other side of the hill, said, Good afternoon, and hello, Roo, and Roo asked them to look at him jumping, so they stayed and looked. And Kanga looked too. Oh, Kanga, said Pooh, after Rabbit had winked at him twice, I don't know if you're interested in poetry at all. Hardly at all, said Kanga. Oh, said Pooh. Roo, dear, just one more jump, and then we must be going home. There was a short silence while Roo fell down another mouse hole. Go on, said Rabbit in a loud whisper behind his paw. Talking of poetry, said Pooh, I made up a little piece as I was coming over. It went like this. Now let me see. Fancy, said Kanga. Now, Roo, dear, you'll like this piece of poetry, said Rabbit. You'll love it, said Piglet. You must listen very carefully, said Rabbit. So as not to miss any of it, said Piglet. Oh, yes, said Kanga, but she still looked at Baby Roo. How did it go, Pooh, said Rabbit. Pooh gave a little cough and began. Lines written by a bear of very little brain. On Monday, when the sun is hot, I wonder to myself a lot, Now is it true or is it not, that what which and which is what? On Tuesday, when it hails and snows, the feeling on me grows and grows, that hardly anybody knows if those are these or these are those. On Wednesday, when the sky is blue, and I have nothing else to do, I wonder if it's true, that who is what and what is who. On Thursday, when it starts to freeze, and hoarfrost twinkles on the trees, how very readily one sees that these are whose, but whose are these. On Friday, yes it is, isn't it, said Kanga, not wanting to hear what happened on Friday. Just one more jump, Roo, and then we really must be going. Rabbit gave Pooh a hurrying up sort of nudge. Talking of poetry, said Pooh quickly, have you ever noticed that tree right over there? What tree? Where? Said Kanga. Roo, now, right over there, said Pooh, pointing behind Kanga's back. No, said Kanga. Now jump in, Roo dear, and we'll go home. You ought to look at that tree right over there, said Rabbit. Shall I lift you in, Roo? And he picked up Roo in his paws. I can see a bird in it from here, said Pooh, or is that a fish? You ought to see a bird from here, said Rabbit, unless it's a fish. It isn't a fish, it's a bird, said Piglet. So it is, said Rabbit. Is it a starling or a blackbird, said Pooh. That's the whole question, said Rabbit. Is it a blackbird or a starling? And then at last Kanga did turn her head to look, and at that moment her head was turned. Rabbit said in a loud voice, In you go, Roo, and in jumped Piglet into Kanga's pocket, and off scampered Rabbit with Roo in his paws, as fast as he could go. Why, where's Rabbit? Said Kanga, turning around again. Are you all right, Roo dear? Piglet made a squeaky Roo-like noise from the bottom of Kanga's pocket. Rabbit had to go away, said Pooh. I think he thought of something he had to go and see about, suddenly. And Piglet? I think Piglet thought of something about the same time, suddenly. Well, we must be getting home, said Kanga. Goodbye, Pooh, and in 3 large jumps she was gone. Pooh looked after her as she went. I wish I could jump like that, he thought. Some can and some can't. That's how it is. But there were moments when Piglet wished that Kanga couldn't. Often when he had the long walk home through the forest, he had wished that he were a bird, but now he thought jerkily to himself at the bottom of Kanga's pocket, if this is flying, I shall never really take to it. And as he went up in the air, he said, oh, and as he came down, he said, ouch, and as he was going up, he said, ow, oh no, oh, all the way to Kanga's house. Piglet's having a day. Of course, as soon as Kanga unbuttoned her pocket, she saw what had happened. Just for a moment, she thought she was frightened, and then she knew she wasn't, for she felt quite sure that Christopher Robin would never let any harm happen to Roo. So she said to herself, if they're having a joke with me, I will have a joke with them. Now then, Roo dear, she said as she took Piglet out of her pocket. Bedtime. Aha, said Piglet, as well as he could after this terrifying journey. But it wasn't a very good aha, and Kanga didn't seem to understand what it meant. Bath first, said Kanga in a cheerful voice. Aha, said Piglet again, looking around anxiously for the others. But the others weren't there. Rabbit was playing with baby Roo in his own house, and feeling more fond of him with every minute. And Pooh, who had decided to be a Kanga, was still at the sandy place at the top of the forest, practicing jumps. I'm not at all sure, said Kanga in a thoughtful voice, that it wouldn't be a very good idea to have a cold bath this evening. Would you like that, Roo dear? Piglet, who had never really been fond of baths, suddenly shuddered a very loud, indignant shudder, and said in as brave a voice as he could, Kanga, I see the time has come to speak plainly. Funny little Roo, said Kanga as she got the bathwater ready. I am not Roo, said Piglet loudly. I am Piglet. Yes, dear, yes, said Kanga soothingly, and imitating Piglet's voice, too. So clever of you. She went on as she took a large bar of yellow soap out of the cupboard. What will you be doing next? Can't you see? Shouted Piglet. Haven't you got eyes? Look at me. I am looking at you, Roo dear, said Kanga rather severely. And you know what I told you yesterday about making faces. If you go making faces like Piglet's, you'll grow up to look like Piglet. And then think how sorry you'll be. Now then, into the bath, and don't let me have to speak to you about it again. Before he knew what he was about, Piglet was in the bath, and Kanga was scrubbing him firmly with a leathery, lathery flannel. Ow, cried Piglet. Let me out. I'm a piglet. Don't open the mouth, dear, or the soap goes in, said Kanga. There, what did I tell you? You did that on purpose, sputtered Piglet as soon as he could speak again, and then accidentally had another mouthful of leathery flannel. That's right, dear. Don't say anything, said Kanga, and in another minute Piglet was out of the bath and being rubbed dry with a towel. Now, said Kanga, there's your medicine, and then bed. What medicine? Said Piglet. To make you grow big and strong, dear. You don't want to grow up small and weak like Piglet, do you? Well then. At that moment there was a knock at the door. Come in, said Kanga, and in came Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin, cried Piglet. Tell Kanga who I am. She keeps saying I'm Roo. I'm not Roo, am I? Christopher Robin looked at him very carefully and shook his head. You can't be Roo, because I've just seen Roo playing in Rabbit's house. Well, said Kanga, fancy that. Fancy my making a mistake like that. There you are, said Piglet. I told you so. I'm Piglet. Christopher Robin shook his head again. Oh, you're not Piglet, he said. I know Piglet quite well, and he's a different color. Piglet began to say that this was because he had just been in a bath, and then he thought that perhaps he wouldn't say that, and as he opened his mouth to say something else, Kanga slipped the medicine spoon in and then patted him on the back and told him that it was really quite a nice taste when you got used to it. I knew it wasn't Piglet, said Kanga. I wonder who it could be. Perhaps it's some relation of Pooh's, said Christopher Robin. What about a nephew or an uncle or something? Kanga agreed that this is probably what it was and said that they would have to call it by some name. I shall call him Poodle, said Christopher Robin. Henry Poodle for short. And just when it was decided, Henry Poodle wriggled out of Kanga's arms and jumped on the ground. To his great joy, Christopher Robin had left the door open. Never had Henry Poodle Piglet run so fast as he ran then, and he didn't stop running until he had gotten quite close to his house. But when he was 100 yards away, he stopped running and rolled the rest of the way home, so as to get his own nice, comfortable color again. So Kanga and Roo stayed in the forest, and every Tuesday, Roo spent the day with his great friend Rabbit, and every Tuesday, Kanga spent the day with her dear friend Pooh, teaching him to jump, and every Tuesday, Piglet spent the day with his great friend Christopher Robin. So they were all happy again. Chapter 8. Christopher Robin leads an expedition to the North Pole. That is probably not going to go well for anybody. One fine day, Pooh had stumped up to the top of the forest to see if his friend Christopher Robin was interested in bears at all. At breakfast that morning, a simple meal of marmalade spread lightly over a honeycomb or two, he'd suddenly thought of a new song. It began like this. Sing ho for the life of a bear. When he had got as far as this, he stretched his head and thought to himself, that's a very good start for a song, but what about the second line? He tried singing ho 2 or 3 times, but it didn't help. Perhaps it would be better, he thought, if I sang hi for the life of a bear. So he sang it again, but it wasn't. Very well then, he said. I shall sing the first line twice, and perhaps if I sing it very quickly, I'll find myself singing the third and fourth lines before I have time to think of them, and that will be a good song. Now then, sing ho for the life of a bear, sing ho for the life of a bear. I don't much mind if it rains or snows, 'cause I've got honey on my nice new nose. I don't care if it snows or thaws, 'cause I've got lots of honey on my nice clean paws. Sing ho the life for a bear, sing ho for Pooh, and I'll have a little something in an hour or two. He was so pleased with the song that he sang it all the way to the top of the forest. And if I go on singing it much longer, he thought, it won't be time for a little something, and then the last line won't be true. So he turned it into a hum instead. Christopher Robin was sitting outside of his door putting on his big boots. As soon as he saw the big boots, Pooh knew that an adventure was going to happen. And then he brushed the honey off his nose with the back of his paw, spruced himself up as well as he could, and was looking ready for anything. Good morning, Christopher Robin, he called out. Hello, Pooh Bear. I can't get this boot on. That's bad, said Pooh. Do you think you could kindly lean against me, because I am pulling so hard that I keep falling backwards? Pooh sat down, dug his feet into the ground, and pushed hard against Christopher Robin's back. And Christopher Robin pushed hard against his, and pulled until he finally had it on. And that's that, said Pooh. What do we do next? We are going on an expedition, said Christopher Robin, as he got up and brushed himself. Thank you, Pooh. Going on an exposition? Said Pooh eagerly. I don't think I've ever been on one of those. Where are we going on the exposition? Expedition, silly old bear. It's got an X in it. Oh, said Pooh, I know. But he didn't really. We're going to discover the North Pole. Oh, said Pooh again. What is the North Pole, he asked. It's just a thing you discover, said Christopher Robin carelessly, not quite sure himself. Oh, I see, said Pooh. Are bears any good at discovering it? Of course they are, and Rabbit and Kanga are all of you. It's an expedition. That's what an expedition means, a long line of everybody. You better tell the others to get ready while I see if we have any guns, all right? And we must bring provisions. Bring what? Things to eat. Oh, said Pooh happily. I thought you said provisions. I'll go and tell them. And he stumped off. The first person he met was Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit, he said. Is that you? Let's pretend it isn't, said Rabbit, and see what happens. I've got a message for you. I'll give it to him. We're all going on an exposition with Christopher Robin. Well, what is it and when is it we're on it? A sort of boat, I think, said Pooh. Oh, that sort. And we're going to discover the pole or something, or was it a mole? Anyway, we're going to discover it. We are we? Said Rabbit. Yes, and we've got to bring things to eat with us, in case you want to eat them. Now I'm going down to Piglet's. Tell Kanga, will you? He left Rabbit and hurried down to Piglet's house. The piglet was sitting on the ground at the door of his house, blowing happily on a dandelion, and wondering whether it would be this year, next year, or sometime, or never. He had just discovered that it would be never, and was trying to remember what it was and hoping that it wasn't anything nice when Pooh came up. Oh, Piglet, said Pooh excitedly. We're going on an exposition, all of us, with things to eat, to discover something. To discover what? Said Piglet anxiously. Oh, just something. Nothing fierce? Christopher Robin didn't say anything about fierce. He just said it had an X. It isn't their necks I mind, said Piglet earnestly. It's their teeth. But if Christopher Robin's coming, I don't mind anything. In a little while they were all ready at the top of the forest, and the expedition was ready to begin. First came Christopher Robin and Rabbit, then Piglet and Pooh, then Kanga with Roo in her pocket and Owl, then Eeyore, and at the end of the long, long line, all of Rabbit's friends and relations. I didn't ask them, explained Rabbit carelessly. They just came. They always do. They can march at the end after Eeyore. What I say, said Eeyore, is that it's unsettling. I didn't want to come on this expo, what Pooh said. I only came to oblige, but here I am. And if I am at the end of the expo, what we're talking about, then let me be the end. But if every time I want to sit down for a little rest, I have to brush away half a dozen of Rabbit's smaller friends and relations first, then this isn't an expo whatever it is at all. It's simply confused noise. That's what I say. I see what Eeyore means, said Owl. If you ask me, I'm not asking anybody, said Eeyore. I'm just telling everybody. We can look for the North Pole, or we can play Here We Are Gathering Nuts in May with the end of the ants with the end part of an ant's nest. It's all the same to me. There came a shout from the top of the line. Come on, called Christopher Robin. Come on, called Pooh and Piglet. Come on, called Owl. We're starting, said Rabbit. I must go. And he hurried off to the front of the expedition with Christopher Robin. All right, said Pooh. All right, said Eeyore. We're going, only don't blame me. So off they all went to discover the pole, and as they walked they chatted to each other of this and that, all except Pooh, who was making up a song. This is the first verse, he said to Piglet when he was ready. First verse of what? My song. What song? This one. Which one? Well, if you listen, Piglet, you'll hear it. How do you know I'm not listening? Pooh couldn't answer that one, so he began to sing. They all went off to discover the pole, Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. It's a thing you discover, as I've been told, but Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. Eeyore, Christopher Robin and Pooh, and Rabbit's relations all went too. And where the pole was none of them knew. Sing hey for Owl and Rabbit and all. Hush, said Christopher Robin, turning around at Pooh. We're coming to a dangerous place. Hush, said Pooh, turning around quickly to Piglet. Hush, said Piglet to Kanga. Hush, said Kanga to Owl, while Roo said hush several times quietly to himself. Hush, said Owl to everyone. Hush, said Eeyore in a terrible voice to all of Rabbit's friends and relations, and hush, they said hastily to one another, all down the line, until it was the very last of them. And the last and smallest friend and relation was so upset to find himself and the whole exposition saying hush to him that he buried his head downwards like in a crack in the ground. And he stayed there for 2 days until the danger was over, and then went home in a great hurry and lived quietly with his aunt ever afterwards. His name was Alexander Beetle. They had come to a stream which twisted and turned and tumbled between high rocky banks, and Christopher Robin saw at once how dangerous it was. It's just the place, he explained. It's just the place for an ambush. What sort of bush, said Pooh to Piglet. A gorse bush? My dear Pooh, said Owl in a superior way, don't you know what an ambush is? Owl, said Piglet, looking around at him severely. Pooh's whisper was perfectly a private whisper, and there's no need. An ambush, said Owl, is a sort of surprise. So is a gorse bush sometimes, said Pooh. An ambush, as I was about to explain to Pooh, said Piglet, is a sort of surprise. If people jump out at you suddenly, that's an ambush, said Owl. It's an ambush, Pooh, when people jump at you suddenly, explained Piglet. Pooh, who now knew what an ambush was, said that a gorse bush had sprung at him several times one day when he fell out of a tree, and he had taken 6 days to get all the prickles out of himself. We are not talking about a gorse bush, said Owl a little crossly. I am, said Pooh. They were climbing very cautiously up the stream, going from rock to rock, and after they had gone a little way, they came to a place where the banks widened out on each side, so that on each side of the water there was a level strip of grass on which they could sit down and rest. As soon as they saw this, Christopher Robin called halt, and they all sat down and rested. I think, said Christopher Robin, that we ought to eat all our provisions now, so we won't have so much to carry. Eat all of our what? Said Pooh. All that we brought, said Piglet, getting to work. That's a good idea, said Pooh, and he got to work too. Have you all got something? Said Christopher Robin with his mouth full. All except me, said Eeyore, as usual. He looked around at them in his melancholy way. I suppose none of you are sitting on a thistle by any chance. I believe I am, said Pooh. Ow! He got up and looked behind him. Yes, I was. I thought so. Thank you, Pooh. If you've quite finished with it. He moved over to Pooh's place and began to eat. It don't do him any good, you know, sitting on them, he went on, and as he looked up munching, takes all the life out of them. Remember that another time, all of you. A little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference. Oh, Eeyore. As soon as he had finished his lunch, Christopher Robin whispered to Rabbit, and Rabbit said, Yes, yes, of course, and they walked a little way up the stream together. I didn't want the others to hear, said Christopher Robin. Quite so, said Rabbit, looking important. I wondered, it's only Rabbit, I suppose you don't know. What does the North Pole look like? Well, said Rabbit, stroking his whiskers, now you're asking me. I did know once, only I've sort of forgotten, said Christopher Robin carelessly. It's a funny thing, said Rabbit, but I've sort of forgotten too, although I did know once. I suppose it's just a pole stuck in the ground. Sure, to be a pole, said Rabbit, because of them calling it a pole, and if it's a pole, well, I should think there would be one sticking in the ground, shouldn't you? Because there'd be nothing and nowhere else to stick it. Well, yes, that's what I thought. The only thing, said Rabbit, is where is it sticking? That's what we're looking for, said Christopher Robin. They went back to the others. Piglet was lying on his back, sleeping peacefully. Roo was washing his face and paws in the stream, while Kanga explained to everybody proudly that this was the first time he had ever washed his face himself. And Owl was telling Kanga an interesting anecdote full of long words like the encyclopedia and rhododendron, to which Kanga was not listening. I don't hold with all of this washing, grumbled Eeyore. This modern behind-the-ears nonsense. What do you think, Pooh? Well, said Pooh, I think, but we will never know what Pooh thought, for there came a sudden squeak from Roo, a splash, and a loud cry of alarm from Kanga. So much for washing, said Eeyore. Roo's fallen in, cried Rabbit. and he and Christopher Robin came rushing to the rescue. "Look at me swimming," squeaked Roo from the middle of this pool, and he was hurried down a waterfall into the next pool. "Are you all right, Roo dear?" called Kanga anxiously. "Yes," said Roo. "Look at me swim." And down he went over the next waterfall into another pool. Everybody was doing something to help. Piglet, wide awake suddenly, was jumping up and down and making "ooh, I say" noises. Al was explaining that in case of sudden and temporary immersion in a body of water, the important thing was to keep your head above the water. Kanga was jumping along the bank saying, "Are you sure you're all right, Roo dear?" To which Roo, from whatever pool he was in at the moment, was answering, "Look at me swimming." Eeyore had turned round and hung his tail over the first pool into which Roo fell, and with his back to the accident was grumbling quietly to himself and saying, "All this washing. But catch on to my tail, little Roo, and you'll be all right." And Christopher Robin and Rabbit came hurrying past everyone, and Eeyore was calling out to the others in front of them. "All right, Roo, I'm coming," said Christopher Robin. "Get something across the stream lower down, some of you fellows," called Rabbit. But Pooh was getting something. 2 pools below Roo, he was standing with a long pole in his paws, and Kanga came up and took one of the end of it, and between them they held it across the lower pool. And Roo, still bubbling proudly, "Look at me swimming," drifted up against it and climbed out. "Did you see me swimming?" squeaked Roo excitedly, while Kanga scolded him and rubbed him down. "Pooh, did you see me swimming? That's called swimming, what I was doing. Rabbit, did you see what I was doing? Swimming. Hello, Piglet. I say, Piglet, what do you have there? Did you see me swimming? I was swimming. Christopher Robin, did you see?" But Christopher Robin wasn't listening. He was looking at Pooh. "Pooh," he said, "where did you find that pole?" Pooh looked at the pole in his hands. "I just found it," he said. "I thought it ought to be useful, so I picked it up." "Pooh," said Christopher Robin solemnly, "the expedition is over. You found the North Pole." "Oh," said Pooh. Eeyore was sitting with his tail in the water when they all got back to him. "Tell Roo to be quick, somebody. My tail's getting cold, and I don't want to mention it, but I just mentioned it, and I don't want to complain, but there it is. My tail's cold." "Here I am," squeaked Roo. "Oh, there you are. Did you see me swimming?" Eeyore took his tail out of the water and swished it from side to side. "As I expected," he said. "Lost all feeling. Numbed it. That's what it's done. Numbed it. Well, as long as nobody minds, I suppose it's all right." "Poor old Eeyore. I'll dry it for you," said Christopher Robin, and he took his handkerchief and rubbed the tail. "Thank you, Christopher Robin. You're the only one who seems to understand about tails. They don't think. That's what's the matter with some of these others. They have no imagination. A tail isn't a tail to them. It's just a little bit extra at the back." "Never mind, Eeyore," said Christopher Robin, rubbing his hardest. "Is that better? It's feeling a little more like a tail, perhaps. It belongs that way again, if you know what I mean." "Hello, Eeyore," said Pooh, coming up to them with his pole. "Hello, Pooh. Thank you for asking, but I shall be able to use it again in a day or two." "Use what?" said Pooh. "What are we talking about?" "I wasn't talking about anything," said Pooh, looking puzzled. "My mistake again. I thought you were saying how you were sorry about my tail being all numb, and could you do anything to help?" "No," said Pooh, "that wasn't me." He thought a little, and then he suggested helpfully, "Perhaps it was somebody else. Well, thank him for me when you see him." Pooh looked anxiously at Christopher Robin. "Who's found the North Pole?" said Christopher Robin. "Isn't that lovely?" Pooh looked modestly down. "Is that it?" said Eeyore. "Yes," said Christopher Robin. "Is that what we were looking for?" "Yes," said Pooh. "Oh," said Eeyore. "Well, anyhow, it didn't rain," he said. They stuck the pole in the ground, and Christopher Robin tied a message to it. "North Pole, discovered by Pooh. Pooh found it." Then they all went home again, and I think, but I'm not quite sure, that Roo had a hot bath and went straight to bed. But Pooh went to his own house, and feeling very proud of what he had done, had himself a little something to revive him. And that is the end of Chapter 8. This is, again, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. There's a couple of chapters left. I try to keep these streams a little shorter, because the idea is that you can come hang out, have a little story time, get a little read. If you fell asleep to this, hope you have a nice night. And if you're still here, let me leave you all with something. Give me just a moment. I'm looking for something here. Here we go. Here it is. Nope, that's wrong. Ah, here it is. So I really like Winnie the Pooh. Yeah. You're very welcome. I like the New Adventures of Winnie.
That was amazing!
Oh my god.
That was the most beautiful performance I've ever seen in my life.
RV. Thank you, RV. The things, the Winnie the Pooh things that I kind of came up with were the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and Dumbo's Circus had a lot of Winnie the Pooh stuff, and it was this little cool puppet show. But I liked those shows. I still like the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I've been rewatching them, and I think that's part of the reason I wanted to read this to y'all. But I will leave you all with my favorite Winnie the Pooh quote. "You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Pebbles, each of you is amazing in your own way, and I hope you all enjoyed this. I will see if there's anyone that we can do a little... You know what? Prism was streaming with Dahlia earlier, so we will raid Dahlia. Give me just a sec to get our raid together here. I think she's doing art now. Yes, I remember Welcome to Pooh's Corner. She's doing special events. Oop. Alright, we're gonna get this together here. One day I'll actually learn how to do this. Alright, we're gonna do... Yes, damn Dahlia. Damn Dahlia. Damn Dahlia. There we go. And if my raid will work, there we go. And I'll get us a raid message here. Alright, we're going to do a pebble raid. There you go. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I will be back tomorrow. We're going to play Disco Elysium. Because that's the game you all picked. So I'm going to keep trying to do at least 2 streams a week for you Pebbles. And I have a really fun idea for our next Doodles and Noodles. Those are our art streams. I want to bring those back. I haven't done one in a long time, but I'm excited to do that. And if you are headed off to bed, until next time, as always, remember to play more games and be safe. Bye.
Called out. It was a month.
Oh my god.